New at the library, we have birdwatching backpacks. This just rolled out and they're available for you to loan. It's a 2-week loan period. And this is what you get. The backpack to go birdwatching. Adult size binoculars, high quality. And we have youth size binoculars. So it's a family backpack if you want. Or friends. We have a Lake County birdwatching guide, which has information about the types of birds that you'll find in Lake County, the migrating birds, the birds that are always here. And in the back, you'll find really neat maps of great places to go birdwatching in Lake County. And the other thing that we have is a bird identification guide. And it shows all the birds that you might find in this area, what they are and what they look like and where to find them. When you bring the bird watching kits back to the library, if you could please bring them inside and not put them in the book returns just to keep them safe. And they're available now. Come on in. And with that, I'd like to introduce Judy Knitzen from Wild Birds Unlimited. She has been invaluable to us for bringing you programming about bird watching, about birds of Central Florida, and you're going to learn a lot about the fascinating migration that happens here. We're a unique area. So, welcome, Judy.
Thanks, Deb. I'm going to talk about calling it Here Come the Snowbirds. I'm going to talk about the 17 most common and easily recognized snowbirds that come down to our area. And the ranges, I'll give you the ranges of when they're here, but that can change on an ongoing basis because of the weather. If it's warmer up north, they won't come down as soon. If it gets colder up north, they'll come down a little bit earlier. And also depends on the availability of food and water. So that, and it also can cause some birds to be atypical for that area, to be in that area because they just migrated too soon or too late. So all of this information is intended to kind of be like a guideline because, like I said, it just depends on the weather. And like, why do birds migrate? The main reason is food. They migrate to areas with high concentrations of food, and it's easier for them to breed where there's food than where there's not food. And there's 3 main types of migrators, and complete migrators, partial migrators, and eruptive migrators. And most of the birds on this list are complete migrators. What that means is they leave at a set time, usually around at the same time. They have a pattern, they travel great distances, and the male species will usually arrive a few weeks before the female because he wants to scope out nesting sites, food sources, and he begins to defend the territory. There's 2 in the 17, the Cedar Waxwing and the Goldfinch, that are considered to be partial migrators. That means they move only far enough south or east or west, whichever direction they're used to moving, to find food. So sometimes they don't have to go quite as far. And some years they go 100 miles, some years they go up to 1,000 miles. It just depends on the weather and the availability of the food. The third was called eruptive. And that is the birds will move every 3 to 5 years. Usually it's triggered by severe weather or when food is really scarce. And none of the ones on this list are eruptive because if they're eruptive, we wouldn't see them that often. So they're not really worth talking about. How do they migrate? Well, they intentionally gourd themselves with food because they have to travel such great distances. So they'll refuel at backyard feeders. That's why backyard bird feeding is really important, because some birds can require 2 to 3 days of constant feeding in order to get where they want to end up. And there's daytime migrators and nighttime migrators. Most of the bigger birds, the eagles, the hawks, the osprey, the falcons, those are the ones that can hold more fat and they can go longer without eating and take longer to migrate. So they're the daytime migrators. They'll be out in the day. They glide along rising columns of warm air called thermals, and that kind of holds them aloft. And they rest at night. They hunt early in the morning, and they'll use landforms, rivers, and the setting sun as their guide. The nighttime migrators are most of the other birds. And if you think about it, they're migrating at night because the bigger birds are sleeping at night. So they're not going to feel as threatened. The doves actually use the Earth's magnetic field to guide them north or south. And nighttime migrating for the smaller birds or the other birds is safer because, like I said, there's fewer nighttime predators. It allows the daytime for them to find food when they're in an unfamiliar setting. And the nighttime wind patterns tend to be flat, not so strong, so they don't have the turbulence like the day winds, and the nighttime winds can actually carry the smaller birds by kind of pushing them along. So we're going to go in. This isn't in any special order. I just put it in alphabetical order. So we're going to start with the Indigo Bunting. It's part of the grosbeak family. It is a complete migrator. It comes around September and leaves around May. It's a small bird. If you look at its beak, it has a short, thick, conical beak, almost like a cardinal's beak. The male is blue all over. He's on the left side. And the female is a shiny silver gray color. She's basically brown. She's got faint streaking on her breast. And these are secretive birds. Usually we only see the male. They're shy. They eat insects, seed, berries. You can attract them to a feeder by putting out Niger, which is a thistle seed, or mealworms. And these are migrators at night, and they can fly up to 1,200 miles each way. Next one is everybody's favorite, the painted bunting. It's in the grosbeak family. It's a complete migrator. It comes around September and leaves around March. It's a medium-sized finch. It has stubby, thick bills. The male is that beautiful colored one on the left. And the female and the immature painted buntings are usually the bright yellow, and they have a pale eye ring. You can see on her picture, she's got that ring around her eye. It's easy to recognize her. They eat seeds most of the year, and then they switch to insects when they're breeding. They can catch grasshoppers, weevils, caterpillars, spiders, snails. And sadly, it's easy to trap them by tricking them into attacking decoys. So people were catching them. And in 1841, John Audubon reported that thousands were caught each spring and shipped from New Orleans to Europe, where they got 100 times the price when they sold them as cage birds. So here in the United States, America, we put a law that cannot be done, but they're still being captured and sold in Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean. The populations have been dropping for several decades due to urban development as we destroy their swampy thickets that they like in the woodland edges. So beautiful birds. This is the gray catbird. He's in the mockingbird family. He does a complete migration. Comes around October, leaves around May. They have a very distinct cat-like sound. It's like a mew. They're a slaty gray color with a small black cap. Notice the long legs. They're reluctant to fly across open areas. They prefer quick flights over vegetation. And their song can last up to 10 minutes when they're marking their territory. In the summer, they like to eat insects. And when fruit's available, they'll eat hollyberries, cherries, elderberries, blackberries. So for this reason, they are considered to be a backyard pest because the things you're trying to grow. Next up is the American goldfinch. It's in the finch family. This is the one that's a partial migrator. They'll go as far as they need to go to find the food that they need. They come around November and they leave around April. We've had customers come in our store that are already seeing them, so they're here. They have a short conical beak. They have a small head, long wings. The picture of the male on the left is what he looks like in the spring and the summer. And then in the winter and the fall, he'll turn to a more muted color. They're one of the only finches that will molt 2 times a year. They almost eat seed exclusively, so they don't like fruit or insects. They breed later than most North American birds because they wait till June or July when milkweed and thistle is around, because they incorporate it in their nest and they use it to feed their young. Their sound, you can hear them, it almost sounds like their call is potato chip. This is the ruby-crowned kinglet. He's in the warbler family. They come around October and they're here till around April. They're smaller than a warbler and chickadee. They're kind of a plain gray-green color. Notice the white eye ring and the white wing bar. Easy way to recognize them. They have almost no neck and a real thin tail, very small, thin, straight beak. They eat mostly insects, and that helps them to get the insects. They're kind of a restless bird. They're real acrobatic. The male has a ruby crown, but it's usually hidden unless he gets excited or upset about something. And the female can lay a large clutch of eggs, up to 12 in a single nest. And that entire clutch can weigh as much as the female. Next up is the Baltimore Oriole. It's in the blackbird family. They come around August and they're here till around April. They're smaller and more slender than a robin. They've got a thick neck, long legs, and pointed bills. They're more often seen than heard. They feed high in the trees. They eat insects, flowers, fruit. They'll even sip nectar out of hummingbird feeders. If you put out ripe fruit like an orange half, that will attract them. You can also put out small amounts of jelly. And the female, interestingly enough, becomes deeper orange with each molt. And so she can become eventually as bright orange as the male. They build those nests that you see on the picture on the left. It looks like a sock-like nest, and it takes her about a week to build it. She builds it by herself. This is the eastern Phoebe. He's in the flycatcher family. Comes around October and stays till around March. They have short, thin bills for catching insects. They eat wasps, beetles, dragonflies, butterflies, moths, spiders, ticks, millipedes. They're kind of a loner. Even the members of a mated pair don't spend much time together. They like to be by themselves. This is the American redstart. I call him the American gigolo because he can have two mates at the same time. He'll hold two separate territories separated by about 1/4 of a mile. He begins attracting the second one after the first one has completed a clutch and is incubating. And interesting enough, I guess he feels bad about it because he spends more time providing food for the first nest than he does for the second. The male's the one on the right side. They're like a medium-sized warbler. They have a wide, fat bill. They also have a long tail. And this is the American robin. They're in the thrush family. They come around October and they're here till around April. It's a large songbird, large round body, long legs, long tail. Female has a paler head than the male does. They eat a large amount of invertebrates and fruit. They eat different foods depending on the time of the day. In the morning, they like to eat earthworms, and in the evening, they like to eat fruit. And because they eat earthworms, they usually forage on lawns, which makes them vulnerable to pesticide poisoning, unfortunately. Robin roosts can be huge, including 250,000 birds during the winter. You can attract them to your feeder by putting out mealworms. This is the Yellowbellied Sap Sucker. He's in the woodpecker family, comes around October and stays till around March. He's small for a woodpecker with a stout, straight bill. Both male and female have red throats. He makes two kinds of holes in trees to harvest sap. He'll make a round hole, which means it extends deep into the tree and he has to insert his bill in to probe for sap, or they can make a rectangular hole, which is shallower, and then he licks the sap. These holes also attract hummingbirds and other birds, also bats and porcupines. They really aren't regular bird feeder visitors. Maybe you can attract them with suet, but usually they won't eat the seed. This is the chipping sparrow. The chipping sparrow comes around October and leaves around April. He's slender, has a long tail, medium-sized bill. He's got a bright rufous cap. They feed on the ground and they take cover in shrubs. They mainly eat seeds. In breeding season, they'll hunt for protein-rich insects. And their nests have appeared in all kinds of unusual places, like hanging baskets, a mower inside a tool shed. And they build a really kind of flimsy see-through nest that doesn't provide much insulation for eggs or young. So sometimes I guess it's a good thing if they're in a tool shed. This is the song sparrow. It's in the American sparrow family. It comes around October, leaves around March. It's kind of a medium-sized sparrow, fairly bulky, has a long rounded tail. It's one of the most familiar North American sparrows. It's usually the first you'll see if you suspect you see a sparrow and you see a streaky body in an open or shrubby area, it's usually a song sparrow. They rarely come to feeders. They eat seeds, insect, and invertebrates. Sometimes black oil sunflower seeds will attract them. This is the black and white warbler. He's in the wood warbler family. Comes around September, leaves around April. It's one of the earliest arriving migrating warblers. It acts more like a nuthatch because it will forage for insects by creeping up and down the trees. And the reason it can do that is because it has an extra long hind claw and heavier legs than other wood warblers. They're very combative. They will attack and fight with others that enter their territory. They eat mostly insects, but it's possible to get them at your backyard feeder if you put mealworms out. This is the palm warbler. I'm seeing a bunch of these now. I walk in the mornings and I see these all over the place. They're in the wood warbler family. They come around November and they're here till about March. They're small, but they're kind of on the larger side for a warbler. They've got a fuller looking body, longer legs. They have that distinct yellow eyebrow that's easy to make them be recognized. They do near constantly tail wagging, moving their tail up and down. They mostly eat insects. In the winter, they'll eat seeds and berries, and they forage on the open ground or low vegetation. This is a YellowRumped Warbler. He's in the wood warbler family. Comes around October, stays till around March. If you look, he's got white eyebrows, a white arc beneath the eye. You can see the white on their throat and both sides of their neck. In the winter, they eat berries from shrubs, and they'll travel in large flocks. You can't see from this picture, but they have a yellow patch on their rear, so sometimes they're called butterbutts. If you put out sunflower seeds, raisins, or suet, you have a chance of attracting them. This is the Cedar Waxwing. Looks like Batman. He's in the waxwing family. It's the other one that's a partial migrator. He'll move to the area to find food. They come around October, stay till around April. They have they're called a waxwing because they have a waxy red secretion that's found on the tip of their wings. The function of it is really unknown, but scientists consider it can help them to attract mates. They don't get their mask until after the first year, and they don't get their wingtips till after the second year. They're one of few North American birds that specializes in eating fruit. They can survive on fruit alone for months. For this reason of eating fruit for months, they can get intoxicated or even die. You can often hear them before you see them. If you go online and get their high-pitched call, you'll recognize them right away. And next up is the house wren. It comes around October, stays till around April. It's a small, all-brown bird with lighter markings on its tail and its wings. It has a slightly curved brown bill. It can be distinguished from a Carolina wren because it does not have the eyebrow that the Carolina wren has. It's a prolific songster, sings from dawn to dusk during mating season. It's the only member of the wren family that's also found in Europe. It's a fierce competitor for nesting boxes and holes. It will go to the point of even killing adult birds to try to get their nesting box. So it can be a source of nest failure for bluebirds, tree swallows, and chickadees. And I'll just end it with this picture. This was actually taken in our backyard. This is our bluebird house, and that's the male bluebird. He was defending the nesting box while she was going and gathering nesting materials. So they're one of my favorites. And I'm open for any questions.
I'm going to sit and talk with you while we're waiting for questions. First of all, thank you. That was awesome.
No, thanks.
I remember when you were here before and you told us about moving to this area from a different area of Florida. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. My husband and I lived in Fort Myers for around 25 years and decided to retire. And we loved Central Florida. We had been going for 2 or 3 years from Fort Myers up to Jacksonville to visit. Our kids lived up there. And so we were stopping in Mount Dora and renting a cottage. And then we got to the point where we bought a condo. So our villa, and we wanting to be here more than we wanted to be there. So we decided to open this franchise because we just wanted something to do and something meaningful. And we've been shopping at Wild Birds Unlimited for years, and we love their products. So.
And there's a big difference between the birds in Fort Myers area than there is here, right?
There is a big difference. Fort Myers area has mostly shorebirds, In fact, when we called the franchise center and said we wanted to open a store, they said, we hope you're not thinking of Fort Myers. And we said, no, because they didn't think that would be a successful store.
Oh.
And when we actually physically moved here and had that idea to open the store, I had to do a lot of research on what birds were here because I wasn't familiar with them from Fort Myers area.
What has been your surprises about birds in this area? And so it's been about 5 years, right? That
Yes,
you've been here?
yes.
So what have been your surprises about what you see here with the birds?
The migrating birds. I love the migrating birds because it's just so interesting to see. We have a TV screen in the back of our store that has a live feed from Ithaca, New York, this Cornell School of Ornithology. And we'll see goldfinches there, and then we won't see them there for 3 or 4 days. And then somebody will come in the store and go, I got goldfinches. And we're like, sure you do, because they're not there anymore. And then we see the same thing when we see them return to Ithaca, New York, and we'll have people coming in going, I'm not having any goldfinches anymore. And we're saying, well, look, they're back.
They went back.
Yeah. So it's kind of neat to watch the migration of that.
That's
birds.
very cool.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions?
No, not.
Okay, if anybody has any questions, you just want to put them in chat, or you can unmute and ask it out loud. Sarah's monitoring.
If they don't know how to unmute, I don't think they can hear me very well. If they don't know how to unmute, they can just hold the space bar down while they're talking about it.
And to temporarily unmute yourself, just if you're on a computer, hold the space bar down, and that will temporarily unmute you. Let's see. When you were here before, you brought in all these little soft birds that had the sounds that they make. Do you still have those at the store?
We do.
I
Yes,
love
we do.
those things. And I was reminded of it when I was at your store picking up the binoculars. I'm thinking, I'm gonna come back I'm going to go get those birds. That's neat.
Yeah, I do the top 25 birds of Lake County. And I think I have 14 of those. I have the little plush bird where I can squeeze it so you can hear the call of the bird. So it's kind of
Let's do that one in February. We're going to schedule another program with Judy in February. So that sounds like a really good one.
I'd love to do that one.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. I've been noticing all different color birds in my backyard. I don't have a feeder. I'm on the edge of a really big retention pond, and then it's all woods. So it's a big wide open area that I can watch. And they come into our trees and our foliage and then leave, but it's the variety is incredible now than it was even like 3 weeks ago. And all the soaring birds are back. They soar down that ridge. I've seen eagles and hawks, and they're pretty quiet in the summer, but man, it is active out there.
Aw. You should get a tray feeder. The tray feeders are the most popular because when you think about a bird's eye view, they see those right away. And almost instantly they'll start coming to your feeder.
Where is the tray going? On the ground?
No, it can hang from a pole, hang from a tree. We have large hooks that you can actually, if you have a big branch, you can hang it from that. But the birds like it too, because when you think about their view, they have a 360-degree view of watching to make sure there's no hawks or predators coming towards them. Whereas if they're at a tube feeder or even at a hopper feeder, which looks like the little house, the bird could be coming the opposite direction and they're not seeing it coming.
So they want that 360
They like
view
that
out.
360 view. And it also,
So
cardinals need a big perching area. They don't like the little pegs. And so they just sit right on the edge. They think that's heavenly.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Where do you think in Lake County is the best spot to go with bird watching?
All right, the question is, where in Lake County is the best spot to go bird watching?
Well, it seems like most people like the Lake Apopka Wildlife Drive, but I don't feel like you'd see as many of backyard birds in Lake Apopka Wildlife Drive as you would, but you'll see all kinds. If you haven't been there, it's definitely worth the trip. You can only go, I think it's 5 to 10 miles an hour, and it takes you about an hour to do the whole loop. But we've seen alligators and otters and all kinds of things in there. But as far as backyard birding, I would probably say one of the nature, like maybe Magnolia Park or even Trimble Park.
There's a pear park here in Leesburg, a little bit south of the South Palms Plaza where Publix is. It's just a little bit south of that, another mile. And there's several trails in there. And And I've seen a lot of birds over there.
Yeah.
Before I knew what I was kind of looking at, which I'm still learning. It takes a long time to learn this.
It
Yeah.
does. Yep.
Can you, what fascinated me when you first spoke here, and I have never forgotten it, is night migration. Can you talk about that? I didn't know that most birds only migrate at night. And is that just for safety reasons, or is there another reason why? I mean, they don't want to get attacked.
Yeah,
And they're under-
that's the main reason is the predators are sleeping at night. They're migrating during the day. The other reason would be the winds and the weather. It's milder at night than it is during the day.
So the wind is down.
The wind is down, and it kind of carries them along instead of them having to use all their wing power.
And all of these, like the 17 birds that you highlighted today, are they all from like Northeast or all of the North continent? I mean, where are they coming from?
Most are from the Northeast.
Mhm. They have a trail down to Florida.
Yep.
Just like a snowbird.
Yes, they are. Have their little luggage already.
Do you have any specials going on at your store for the holidays?
We do. We have Fill a Bag Friday. We have Black Friday. And
This Friday?
everybody gets a cloth reusable grocery bag kind of thing. And we call it the magical bag because you get 25% off anything that fits in the bag. And we make everything fit in the bag.
25% off?
25%
Wow.
off. We're open 10 to 6. So we did really well last year with it, and we're hoping again to do well with it this year.
So the location is in Eustis, and it's in a plaza. And you can look up her address and everything, but there's a pretty well-known Asian restaurant right in the front of that plaza.
Kiku.
Kiku. So if you know where that is, it's
There's
right on
Kiku,
441.
Gator Dockside, and Applebee's. And it's Eustis Village. It's at the corner of David Walker and 441,
Yeah.
which they made our address as David Walker Drive. I hate that because that's the side of us. It's really, we should be 441.
Yeah, you are on 441.
Yeah, and we're down at the Sonic end of the plaza. So if you
Right.
come in the Bell side and you don't go past Publix, we're kind of at an angle, you won't see us. But if you come in the Sonic side or you keep going past Publix, you'll see us.
There is literally something for everybody in that store. It is packed of just, for people who are novice bird watchers, serious bird watchers, and people who just love a painting of a bird or, home decor and kids' toys and all kinds of things. So it's fantastic. It's a great store.
Well, thank you.
Great nature store.
Yeah, we've got a big variety of things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you everybody for joining, and look for Judy to come back. Again, it will be in person or via Zoom, and probably at the end of February. We haven't set the date yet. And we'll be talking about the 25 most common birds in Lake County, and not necessarily migrators, right?
Right, these are the permanent birds.
These are the permanent birds. Okay, that will be so interesting.
Yeah.
And also let us know if you would like to check out a bird watching kit, and thank you for joining. Bye, everyone.
Thanks.